large hail too. We do have a hatched risk, which you don't always see in portions of western North Carolina, but even starting with the chance of some thunderstorms here this morning across the upstate, this will clear, and then we're going to see more storms to come this afternoon and evening that really bring that severe risk into play. But southern portions of Greenville into Lawrence, Greenwood, we're seeing some storms here into areas like Greenwood and Abbeville, some heavy downpours as well just south of due west into Princeton, south of Woodruff, off towards Malden area, and then into Union south towards Newberry. Temperatures right now in the 60s for many of us to the 50s, so you do want the rain gear today, or at least a raincoat later on. Really by this afternoon, specifically in the mountains. Not so much for the upstate. We're actually going to get clearing of these showers, these thunderstorms. We're going to warm up, get some fuel going for those storms later on today. Temperatures in the 80s by 3 o'clock. With your storm. Morning, everyone. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Katherine N. It is a first alert weather day. We have some strong to severe storms that we're expecting to come on through really this late afternoon towards this evening, even overnight into the very early morning hours. Now, something a little unusual about this risk. We do have a very large hail risk for the mountains. That's 2+ inch in diameter. That's some fairly big hail that we could see. On top of that, we could also see some damaging winds. Starting with this morning, we do have some storms out there right now, so I don't want to just blow by these. But this is not the severe threat that we are talking about when we mention a first alert weather day for today. We're seeing just some heavy rain, some general thunderstorms rolling through into Fountain Inn and Gray Court, off towards Lawrence, into areas like Whitmire, down towards Newberry and Chapel, straight rain, and some more thunderstorms into Greenwood and 96 near Abbeville. We're going to see those start to move east, and we're dry by about 8 to 9 o'clock. We get a break from the clouds, we get this energy to build on up, and with it by the afternoon and the evening, we get more storms to start to spark, specifically into western North Carolina first. And this is where we do have that higher threat for very large hail, as I mentioned. Asheville, Hendersonville, off towards the northeast, 2 to 6, picking up this storm risk into the evening, even about 8 to 10. And overnight, you can see the upstate getting our chance of storms around 10 to midnight, probably the best, and then starting to move off towards the southeast around 2, 3 a.m. So today, our risk has gone up a little bit since yesterday, since we talked this time. Scattered to isolated severe storms with the best chance of maybe 1 or 2 or more storms that could turn severe into Anderson, Lawrence, Greenville, north specifically again. Western North Carolina this evening into tonight. We are going to see that chance of a potentially severe storm into Friday as well. Friday's coverage doesn't look as intense. We'll see what happens after these storms roll on through today. But into the afternoon and evening, showers and storms pick up from about 1 to 5, anywhere from the mountains towards 26 into Lawrence for your Friday. And this is where the severe risk is in place for tomorrow. Isolated in southern Greenville County, Lawrence, and Greenwood. Rain chances do continue potentially over Mother's Day. Meteorologist Katherine N. talking about this first alert weather day today, where we have the risk of very large hail in portions of the mountains. Now, the good thing about this is timing when, well, it doesn't really affect kids headed to school or home from school, so this is great news. But still, the bus stop forecast, some kids' storms here this morning, but this is not why we declared the first alert weather day. I just want to make sure you know that. We have afternoon and evening storms that really bring in that chance of enhanced hail and even damaging winds. Right now, we're just seeing general thunderstorms. Zooming in a little closer on this, it's in southern portions of Greenville towards Malden, south and southeast, into Woodruff, into dropping into areas like Kirksey, off towards Newberry County, just some showers, Union south, into areas like Greenwood and Abbeville. Temps right now in the 60s to 50s, so very mild when you step outside, but don't let that fool you. Yes, we're going to see the sunshine ahead of us today, but this is going to bring us some fuel too for those showers and thunderstorms that really ramp up later. The storms we're seeing right now, these will end by about 8, 9 o'clock, but you can see the sunshine bringing in a beautiful day of the 80s. It's going to be warm, a little muggy out there, and then come the storms into tonight. So this timeline, 3 to 10 for western North Carolina, and this area here has that best chance of seeing the very large hail, the 2+ inch diameter hail. As we spread these storms south and southeast, they'll make their way through most of the upstate by 6 to really midnight, and then overnight towards areas off to the very east and southeast into Newberry County. So the storms today, that timing, best shot in general across the entire area. So meteorologist Katherine N. We do have severe storms possible, really ramping up this afternoon towards this evening, even late tonight for the upstate. So we're going to talk about those threats being large hail for the mountains, unusually large hail as as well, 2+ inch in diameter. We're going to go through that later. That plus damaging winds, really we could see this across the area, those gusty damaging winds and heavy rain, of course, with those downpours, with the thunderstorms we see moving on through. Already, speaking of thunderstorms, we're seeing some this morning, but this is not a severe threat. This is just general thunderstorms right now that are moving through parts of the upstate from Lawrence into Greenwood. It's now off towards our southeastern portions of the counties here into Woodruff, Fountain Inn, Gray Court, Lawrence, down towards Crossville, Chapels, 96, seeing a lightning strike there towards 96. But later on today, this is when we get our chance to spark those strong to severe thunderstorms across the area, specifically moving into western North Carolina first. We're going to see storms pop by about 2-3 o'clock, really ramping up coverage into the evening in this area. Asheville north towards the northeast in general, and then building in that chance overnight 10 to about midnight. And then on top of that, we could see a storm linger around 3 a.m. Large hail risk, this hatched hail risk. This is not something you see every day. You may be wondering, what does this mean? It's an enhanced risk for very large hail into western North Carolina, Hendersonville, Asheville, really anywhere across western North Carolina. We could have 2+ inch diameter hail. Looking at these hail sizes, what does that mean? It's really going to fall somewhere in the middle between hen egg or a lime size. The severe levels, this is fairly rare. I mean, again, we don't normally see something this big in terms of the size of that hail that could do some damage, which we'll talk more about in the 7 o'clock hour. Those storm threats continue with damaging winds, heavy rain, again, isolated hail across the area. And we're not done with our chance for rain, storms that will linger into Mother's Day weekend. More so, though, the heavy rain coming into next week. We have the battle of the high and the low pressure we've been telling you about. We get this cold front that stalls over the weekend and brings in continued rain chances potentially. It's going to be our southern and southeastern zones that have the best shot of seeing some of this rain that's going to be really coastal into the weekend. So Mother's Day, I do think we stay mainly dry, but prepare for a chance and then a little bit later across the upstate. But overall, it's going to be late afternoon to early evening for the mountains and then really overnight tonight for the upstate. But not to surpass what's going on right now on First Alert radar. We do have some showers, some storms moving on through, specifically off towards the southeast. This have been really rolling on through the past several hours. But right now, Woodruff towards Enery, Clinton, these are not the severe threat that we are talking about. That's going to come later on today. These are just general thunderstorms, really in Prosperity. A lot of lightning here, probably about 20 strikes towards Silver Street into Chapels, Kirksey, 96. So those areas need the umbrella for the next hour. But I will say, not a bad day ahead of us. This is mainly for the upstate, showing even into this evening. Sunshine in upper 70s to low 80s to come. But then after this timeline, we will see a good chance of those storms to come on into the upstate, starting first with western North Carolina. You're going to see the storms late afternoon towards tonight, about 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is where we could see that very large hail possibility, which we'll talk about later. Moving into the upstate, most of us across the upstate from 6 to midnight tonight, and then about 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. for that southeastern corner. Damaging winds and isolated hail, 1 and 2 for the threats. Could see some heavy rain and also could see some very large hail, unusually large hail for some areas, which we're going to talk more about later. But let's talk about those roadways now here with Chris Scott. Meteorologist Katherine N. We're back to another First Alert weather day today for good reasons too. Strong to severe storms coming through the area. Timing is going to be about 3 p.m. starting in the mountains and ending across the southeastern portions of the upstate around 2 o'clock really tomorrow morning. Very large hail is possible in the mountains. We have a hatched risk, and I'll show you what that means later. It's an enhanced risk for very large hail that's 2+ inch in diameter. That's egg size. Damaging winds too. So on top of that, we could see straight line damaging winds. Those are our number 1 and number 2 threats. Real quick this morning though, we're already seeing some thunderstorms. These are not the severe storms that we were talking about. This is not part of that First Alert weather day. That's coming later on this afternoon and evening. Storms right now just focus into the southeast. It's going to be areas like Woodruff, a couple lightning strikes there towards Fountain Inn. These have stayed general thunderstorms. Mainly just seeing this rain. It's been moving across the upstate the past hour towards Whitmire, now towards Newberry and Chapels. It's going to be out of here by about 8 o'clock. We are going to see those showers start to form, some thunderstorms by about 2-3 o'clock into western North Carolina later today, starting to get this first, but picking up by 6 by this afternoon and evening. I know Clemson does have their graduation ceremonies. They should be fine up until maybe those coming home later tonight. That's going to be the time frame, 10 to midnight into about 3 a.m. across the upstate, where we could see those storms at least start to form. That severe weather risk in place, isolated to scattered across the area. The orange is where we have a little bit more concern of seeing some better chances of more severe storms to pop versus the yellow. That's going to be most of the upstate, Anderson north towards Greenville, Pickens, and Oconee County, mainly tonight, and then areas like western North Carolina later on this afternoon and early evening. Showing Friday, because we do have a chance of severe storms on Friday, it's not going to be as high of a risk of what we're seeing here for today, but storms could spark by the afternoon about 1 to 5. You can see isolated thunderstorms moving on through the upstate off towards the eastern sides of the mountains too, from Asheville, Hendersonville, Greenville. We're looking much drier by 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Something we're staying on top of is these areas off towards the southeast. In general, we could see some isolated severe storms into the area again. Rain chances increasing for us into next week. What's iffy is, again, this forecast for the weekend, Mother's Day weekend, Artisphere weekend, a lot going on. I do think we stay mainly dry, but we could see a chance of an isolated shower or storm in our south and how big things could get across the area in terms of that hail, the damage things could do, but even damaging winds on top of this. So a lot to take in, 3 p.m. to about 2 a.m. So we do have a nice wide frame, too, of when we could see these strongest severe storms really spark later on this afternoon towards the storms till later on, but arriving in the mountains a little bit earlier, about 3 p.m., sliding in across the upstate, sliding down towards the south and southeast up till about 2 a.m. with very large hail and damaging winds possible. We'll talk about those threats later, but let's talk about the showers and storms we've seen this morning. This is not why we have this first alert weather day in place. What we're seeing this morning, that comes later on today, so I want to make sure you're not confused by this. But from Union down towards Whitmire into Prosperity, we're seeing the end of those just general thunderstorms and showers that we saw. Beautiful day. Again, I mean, energy is going to be in place because of the sunshine, though. That's going to help us fuel those storms later on this evening and really late afternoon in the mountains. Temperatures warming quite a bit today. It's not going to be bad if you're going to be outside. You don't need the rain gear all day long sort of thing. We're going to have those shower chances come after this time frame of 9 to 5, picking up later on this evening for the upstate. So this time frame looking good and sunny, warming to the mid to upper 70s by lunchtime and then a low 80 today. So Thursday storms timing is 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. I think it's a beautiful day, but it's the afternoon and evening where things really start to set up with this severe threat, and it could potentially run into some issues for those for that last graduation ceremony starting at 6 p.m. for Clemson. So here's the timeline of storms across the area. Mountains' biggest concern in general for those threats, and we'll go through this, but starting around 3 p.m. we could start to see some strong to severe storms fire off, continuing up until about 10. Starting around 7, 8 o'clock, if those storms move fast enough, I am including that in this timeline here. We could see some storms start to spark around 7 p.m., which is concerning for that last Clemson graduation timeline up until midnight. So for those celebrating into the night as well. And then 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., latest 3 o'clock into the morning tomorrow for those areas off towards the southeast. But this is what we're looking at for the next 12 hours. It looks beautiful. A lot of energy in the atmosphere, though, helping us fire off those strong to severe storms, leading to that severe weather risk in place for today. Scattered severe thunderstorms for most of us across the area, even isolated for the southeast. Large hail for the mountains and damaging winds, which we're going to go through coming up here for us a little bit later. But we're going to take a look at the roadways here now this morning with Chris Scott, talking about strong to severe storms this afternoon, this evening, really ramping up this evening, even tonight for the upstate potentially. So around 3 p.m. starting earlier in the mountains, moving across the upstate from about 10 to 2 a.m. with large hail being that #1 threat, and kind of a more serious threat that we've been talking about, an unusual threat too in the mountains because we have a hatched concern, which means enhanced 2+ inch diameter, very large hail possibility, which we'll talk more about later. Damaging winds on top of this and heavy rain, of course, with any sort of thunderstorms that we will see. We're off to now a dry start at this point. You know, you look back a couple hours ago, we did have some storms rolling through. Those are off towards our south and southwest. Dry afternoon and evening, beautiful. I mean, 80s, warm, almost going to throw you off a bit if you're not knowing about that chance of severe storms later on today. But this is why you're watching, and we're telling you here, giving you this first alert. This afternoon and evening, we told you days ago, storms are going to be popping, and that's going to be the case around 2, 3 o'clock into western North Carolina, building into this evening. A higher threat during this point, 6, 7, 8 o'clock into the mountains, building around 10 to midnight and potentially up to 3 a.m. for the upstate. Should be okay for most of Clemson's ceremonies, but I do want to give you this higher risk of some of those threats into portions of western North Carolina. This is where that massive concern is for very large hail. It's this hatched threat. You don't always see this. What this means, we could see 2+ inch diameter hail in this area. Isolated severe threat to anywhere really, Greenville, Anderson, Lawrence, and then less of a threat off towards the southeast, but still possible with a stronger severe storm there later on tonight. Hail sizes, what is 2 inch? That is an egg size hail that's going to be coming down potentially, or areas maybe even getting 2.5 inches just above that, tennis ball. So that's going to do some damage to property out there, to cars, to even anyone that's going to be outside in general. This is why, we're saying be careful. Normally we see 1/4 inch hail, 1 inch, which is quarter size or less. This is in that rare outlook for us. Not just hail though, we could see some strong wind gusts, damaging winds, and then also heavy rain potential too. Washout potential in general through the weekends. Yeah, it's looking like we could see maybe an isolated storm shower into Saturday and Sunday, more so showers building into next week though, all because of this low pressure. High pressure hopefully blocking this though, us from that rain. You can see maybe cutting into our southern and southeasternmost zones into Saturday and Sunday. So not going to say it's not possible to see a chance of an isolated shower, but I do think your outdoor plans will be fine. Hopefully this just stays confined to the coastline, which I do think it will. Up until Monday and Tuesday, we bring long to severe, timing being 3 p.m. starting in the mountains and then rolling through late tonight into early tomorrow morning across the upstate. So not great timing. This is why you should download our First Alert weather app. We're going to have that chance for very large hail, and usually large hail too in certain areas like the mountains, which we've been talking about all day long. We've been giving you that first alert. The very large hail plus damaging winds, those are the main threats. Honestly, not a bad day. We had some showers, some storms roll through the upstate this morning, but we have a good chance of getting the clearing, the sunshine, bringing in some energy, some destabilization for us into our atmosphere later on today. We're going to get those chances of storms to start to pop around 2, 3 o'clock earliest, but building into the evening time frame into western North Carolina. Anywhere in this region off towards Asheville, Hendersonville, and to the northeast, coming in from the Tennessee state line, building around 9, 10 o'clock, starting to pop in the upstate during this time frame, even into the overnight hours, starting to get a little worse around midnight. So you're going to hear that energy out there, those storms later on, maybe even waking you up in the middle of the night and continuing up till about 2, 3, potentially 4 in the morning off towards the south. Severe weather risk into place today. Scattered to isolated. Best chances in the orange, and that's most of us across the entire area. We could see isolated hail and damaging winds all across the area, with best shot of multiple severe storms into Greenville, Anderson, Lawrence, north towards the mountains. Leading into Friday, because we're not quite done with this chance of severe weather. Now, Friday's not going to be as intense as what we could see later on, but afternoon and evening around 12, so lunchtime, 1, starting to see those storms pop into areas like Greenville. 26 around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, even 7 we could see one lingering off towards the southeast, which is where we do have that risk for severe weather tomorrow evening. And late afternoon, isolated, but it's there, with rain chances potentially continuing over Mother's Day weekend. Not what you timing a little bit earlier in the day too, when we could see that activity really ramping up 3 to 7 across the mountains, maybe a little bit later, with very large hail continuing the rest of this time frame, the later portion into the upstate. But again, 2+ inch diameter hail and damaging winds, and we'll talk more about those threats later. But the next 12 hours, we're looking pretty beautiful. This is for the upstate specifically. Keep that in mind. Warming to the mid-70s just before lunchtime, a low 80 today. Nice and pretty with sunny skies before those storms start to pop into the mountains. Coming in first, 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. across Asheville, Hendersonville, really anywhere across western North Carolina. 7 p.m. to about midnight for most of us across the upstate, with some lingering up till about 2 a.m., maybe 3 a.m. off towards the southeastern portions. Again, very large hail possible in the mountains. This is where our biggest concern does lie, but we could see some severe storms into the upstate as well. We'll talk more about those threats, who exactly could see what when, coming up a little bit later. Guys, back to you.
Catherine, we're going to talk about this now. A measure that addresses the rising
possible. We've been mentioning it all morning long. This Thursday afternoon and evening, really ramping up that storm chance first in the mountains and then tonight across the upstate. Not looking to be as bad as what we could potentially see in the mountains with large hail. That's going to be our #1 concern. Unusually large hail, 2+ inch diameter, which we'll talk about. Damaging winds on top of that and heavy rain with these storms as well. Getting straight to the timing here, now we have this beautiful day ahead of us. It's going to warm, bring us that extra energy and spark off these storms later on into the afternoon for us around 2-3 o'clock into western North Carolina, moving off towards the northeast. In general, you can see even 6 o'clock this evening bringing in the best chance at this point, ramping up the strong to severe storm coverage too across western North Carolina and moving into the upstate later on. So starting around 10 to midnight is when we could see those storms start to pile on across the upstate and then diminishing with any threat as we go into the overnight time frame until about 3 o'clock. This hatched risk, we do not always see this, right? Normally you look at a map like this and we don't have those lines coming across a certain area, but it looks like it's even starting to span into portions of the upstate here this morning, Pickens and Oconee County and northern Greenville, and that is brand new with very large hail possible, 2+ inch diameter. What that means for what kind of size, what comparable size, that is egg size hail for us, kind of in that rare severe level here. Normally we're about an inch or less is what we do see, penny and pea sized more across the area. This is going to be potentially hen egg size, maybe even some tennis ball size into portions of the mountain. So that is rare. On top of it, seeing heavy rain and isolated hail as the potential for those threats into this evening. So showing what's going to happen over the weekend. The other thing that we've been talking about is Mother's Day. Are we going to see those showers? Newest outlook showing we could see some of this rain coming in just a bit further north into Mother's Day. So prepare for some isolated showers on Mother's Day. Leading up your 7-day forecast, isolated strong to severe storms